Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Today I want to talk about a habit that has shaped almost every success in my life. It's not intelligence. It's not talent. It's not even luck. It's patience. The ability to stay calm when others panic. The discipline to wait when everyone else rushes. The willingness to think long-term in a world obsessed with the next 5 minutes. But patience didn't come to me automatically. I wasn't born with it. I learned it. I practiced it. And I earned it through experience, mistakes, and observation. What I want to share today is how I learned to stay patient, especially at the moments when the world around me looked like it was falling apart. Let's start at the beginning. When I was a young investor, the stock market felt like a storm. Prices moved fast. People reacted fast. And when things went wrong, they really went wrong. I remember watching crowds of investors panic at every drop, every rumor, every headline. Someone would shout, someone would sell, someone would predict disaster. And without thinking, others followed. Panic is contagious. It spreads quickly because it plays on fear. Fear of loss. Fear of embarrassment. Fear of missing out. Fear of being wrong. And when fear takes over, rational thinking disappears. People make decisions they never would have considered in calmer moments. Early in my career, I watched seasoned investors, people far more experienced than me, lose fortunes simply because they couldn't stay calm. They let emotion guide their decisions. And emotion is a terrible compass for money. I learned my first major lesson from studying these reactions. I realized that if I could stay rational while others were emotional, I would have an enormous advantage. Not a small edge. A massive one. Because in markets, emotion creates opportunity. When people panic, they sell good businesses at bad prices. When they get greedy, they buy bad businesses at high prices. If you can avoid those emotional swings, you will always be in a better position than the crowd. One of the earliest examples of this came during the market downturn in the 1950s. I had invested in companies that I understood, businesses with strong balance sheets, strong earnings, and strong leadership. But when the market dropped, people around me reacted as if the world was ending. They sold everything. They ran for the exits. They didn't look at the facts. They looked at the fear. But I opened the annual reports. I checked the numbers. I studied the management. I reminded myself that a temporary drop in price didn't change a company's long-term value. The business was still strong. The fundamentals were still intact. And if the value was still there, the lower price was not a threat. It was an opportunity. That moment taught me something important. A calm mind sees clearly. And I began building rules to keep that calm, rules I still follow to this day. The first rule was this: don't react to headlines. News is designed to be dramatic. It grabs attention by amplifying fear. But markets don't move on fear, they move on fundamentals. I learned to ignore drama and focus on data. The second rule was, never make decisions in the heat of emotion. If I felt excited, I waited. If I felt scared, I waited. If I felt pressured, I waited. Time cools the mind. And decisions made with a cool mind are almost always better than decisions made in a rush. The third rule was, study history. Every market crash looks unique in the moment, but history shows a pattern. Markets fall, markets recover. Businesses struggle, businesses adapt. Fear rises, fear fades. When you understand the past, you don't panic about the present. But perhaps the most important rule was this: know what you own. If you only buy businesses you understand, businesses you believe in, it's much easier to stay patient. You don't panic if you truly understand the value. Panic comes from confusion. Confidence comes from clarity. Over time, these rules helped me stay calm through some of the worst moments in financial history. And each crisis reinforced the same lesson: patience is not passive. Patience is an active decision. It is discipline. It is strength. It is clarity under pressure. And it is one of the greatest financial tools in the world. As the years went by, I realized something else about panic. Most people don't panic because of facts. They panic because of stories. A headline, a prediction, a rumor, a sudden drop in prices. These things create fear long before the actual situation becomes clear. The human mind fills in the blanks, and it always fills them with the worst-case scenario. But I trained myself to do the opposite. When others asked, "What if it gets worse?" I asked, "What do the numbers say?" When others said, "Everyone is selling," I asked, "Is the business still strong?" When the crowd ran in one direction, I paused and looked the other way. This mindset helped me in one of the most famous periods of panic, the 1973-74 market crash. Stocks were falling everywhere. Investors were terrified. People predicted the end of the American economy. Prices dropped so low that many companies were selling for less than the value of their own assets. But I didn't panic. I didn't sell. I didn't join the noise. Instead, I reviewed every business I owned. I checked their earnings, their leadership, their long-term prospects. And what I saw was simple. The businesses were still good. The prices were just low. And low prices create opportunity. That crisis became one of the most profitable periods of my entire career. Not because I predicted anything. Not because I was the smartest person in the room. But because I stayed patient while others lost their nerve. Patience is often misunderstood. Some people think patience means doing nothing. It doesn't. Patience means resisting the urge to make decisions based on fear. It means taking the time to understand the situation. It means trusting the process even when the results aren't immediate. And that trust paid off again in 1987, during Black Monday. The market dropped over 20% in a single day. One day, people panicked in ways I had never seen before. It felt like chaos. Phone lines were jammed, investors were shouting, brokers were overwhelmed. It was like watching a stampede. But when the dust settled, I reminded myself of something. The value of a business doesn't change just because its stock price changes. A good company on Friday didn't become a bad company on Monday. Markets are emotional, but businesses are real. And if you focus on what is real, you don't lose your mind over what is temporary. So while others were selling out of fear, I was buying businesses I believed in. Not because I wanted to be bold, but because the numbers made sense. Patience isn't about bravery. It's about clarity. Years later, the same lesson appeared again during the dot-com bubble. Everyone was buying tech companies with no profits, no real products, and no clear path to success. All they had was hype. And hype can't pay dividends. I didn't invest in those companies, not because I didn't believe in technology, but because I didn't understand the businesses well enough to trust them. When the bubble burst, many investors lost everything. And again, people panicked. Fear flooded the market. Companies collapsed. But I stayed patient. I waited for real businesses at real prices. And when those appeared, I invested with confidence. But perhaps the greatest test of patience came during the 2008 financial crisis. The fear then was unlike anything I had seen. Banks were failing. Markets were crashing. Businesses were shutting down. Even people who normally stayed calm were shaken. Panic wasn't just common, it was everywhere. But even then, the rules didn't change. I reviewed the businesses I understood. I looked at their long-term value. I examined their balance sheets. And I found that several great companies were suddenly available at once-in-a-generation prices. So I invested when almost no one else wanted to. Some people thought I was reckless. But I wasn't. I wasn't betting on luck. I was betting on patience, discipline, and long-term value. The same principles that guided me since the beginning. And after the recovery, those decisions became some of the most successful investments I ever made. The world changes. Markets change. Technology changes. But human behavior doesn't. Fear and greed are constants. And because they are constants, patience will always be a competitive advantage. When the storm hit, Warren didn't sprint to the exit like everyone else. He looked at the panic, took a breath, and reminded himself of something simple. Does this change the value of the business? If the answer was no, he stayed calm. If the answer was yes, he acted slowly and deliberately. That mindset didn't come from genius. It came from mistakes he made when he was young. One of his early lessons came in his teenage stock trades. At 11 years old, he bought shares of Citi's Service Preferred, watched them fall, felt fear rise in his chest, and sold as soon as he saw a small profit. Then the stock soared far beyond anything he imagined. He learned that impatience cost him more money than bad decisions ever would. That stuck with him. Later, when he partnered with Ben Graham, he watched his mentor treat the stock market like a noisy neighbor. Graham didn't argue with it. He didn't chase it. He didn't react to its mood swings. He waited. Warren took that idea and refined it into something even stronger. If you can't stay patient, you can't stay wealthy. So when markets crashed in 1962, 1973, 1987, 2000, 2008, and even 2020, Warren's habit was the same. Step back. Think clearly. Act only when emotions calm down. He understood something most people miss. Panic is contagious. But so is patience. When everyone is selling, they want relief, not logic. They want the fear to stop, and selling feels like control. But Warren knew selling in fear is like jumping out of a plane because the ride got a little bumpy. He trained himself to ask better questions during chaos. Is the business still solid? Will people still use their product tomorrow? Is this fear based on reality or on headlines? If the business was strong, he waited. If the price dropped, he bought more. Not because he was fearless, but because he trusted his process more than his emotions. One of the strongest examples came in 2008. Banks were collapsing. The headlines were terrifying. People believed the entire global financial system was on its deathbed. Investors were watching their portfolio evaporate and couldn't sleep. Warren wasn't calm because he didn't understand the danger. He was calm because he did. He said something powerful during that time. Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. Most people repeat that line. Very few live it. But Warren had spent decades preparing himself to act that way. He didn't rely on bravery. He relied on practice. He practiced looking past the noise. He practiced ignoring predictions. He practiced trusting long-term value over short-term fear. So when 2008 hit, he invested billions in companies that terrified everyone else. And the payoff was historic. But here's the real lesson. Patience isn't something you magically gain. It's something you build through experience, discipline, and clarity. Warren Buffett didn't learn patience from success. He learned it from loss, regret, and watching what panic does to people who should know better. He learned to shut out the crowd. He learned to value silence over chaos. He learned that the world rewards you for waiting longer than most people think they can. And he learned that if you stay patient when everyone else panics, the world eventually comes back to you. The turning point in Warren's mindset came when he understood something most investors never realize. The market is not there to guide you. The market is there to serve you. Most people let the market control their emotions. They treat every drop as a threat and every rise as a sign of brilliance. Warren flipped that thinking. He treated the market like a store where prices change every second. If the price was good, he bought. If the price was bad, he walked away. He didn't beg the market for comfort. He waited for opportunity. This shift allowed him to stay steady in situations that made others crumble. Take the 1973-74 crash. The market fell by nearly half. People were convinced that the American economy was on life support. Newspapers used words like collapse and crisis almost daily. Investors started selling everything, even good companies, because fear was louder than logic. Warren saw something different. He saw great businesses selling for the price of scraps. He saw fear creating discounts that only appear once every decade. He didn't get excited, but he got interested. He bought shares in some of the strongest companies in the country because he knew that the world does not end quietly. If a company had customers, cash flow, and strong leadership, the panic outside did not change the math inside. He later said that this period was one of the most profitable of his life. Not because of luck. Because of patience. Another story came from the dot-com boom in the late 90s. Everyone was buying anything with a website. Companies with no profits, no plan, and sometimes no product were valued higher than established businesses with decades of success. People begged Warren to join the wave. They said he was too old, too slow, too traditional. They laughed at him for staying out. Warren didn't get defensive. He simply said, "I don't invest in what I don't understand." And he meant it. While others were trying to get rich in 6 months, Warren was protecting wealth for 60 years. When the bubble burst and billions vanished in days, Warren stood exactly where he had been from the start. Calm, patient, focused. Patience protected him when excitement became confusion. Patience protected him when confusion became fear. Patience protected him when fear became disaster. But one of the most powerful examples happened in 2020 when the world shut down. Markets dropped at record speed. Businesses closed overnight. Entire industries froze. Ordinary people were scared for their families and their future. Even experienced investors felt lost. Warren didn't pretend to have all the answers. He admitted he could not predict the virus, the economy, or the timeline. But he still stayed patient. He said something simple but important. Never bet against America. He had lived through wars, recessions, inflation spikes, political shocks, and oil crises. He had seen the world fall apart and rebuild itself many times. So he trusted history more than headlines. Instead of panicking, he focused on one question. What businesses will survive this and come out stronger? He invested in companies with long-term strength, not short-term comfort. And once again, patience paid off. The market recovered. Businesses reopened. People regained hope. And Warren's decision to stay calm proved right once again. The deeper lesson here is this. Patience is not passive. It is a strategy. Warren uses patience the same way a sailor uses a compass. He lets it guide him when the waves are rough. He lets it steady him when the wind is loud. He lets it protect him when the world is moving too fast. Most people react. Warren responds. There is a difference. He once said that investing is simple, but not easy. Why? Because you are fighting your own emotions more than the market. Fear, greed, regret, FOMO, overconfidence. These destroy wealth faster than any economic crisis. Warren learned to control them because he knew something most people refuse to accept. You cannot build lasting wealth with a restless mind. Patience builds clarity. Clarity builds confidence. Confidence builds good decisions. And good decisions, made consistently, build wealth. That is how Warren Buffett learned to stay patient when everyone else panicked. He trained his mind the same way athletes train their bodies. Slowly, deliberately, every day. And he never stopped practicing. And here's the part people often overlook. Patience isn't passive for Buffett. It's not sitting in a chair waiting for the world to fix itself. His patience is active. It's built on preparation. He studies businesses long before he buys them. He learns how they make money, what their weaknesses are, and what their future could look like. So when chaos hits, he already knows which companies are worth holding and which ones he should avoid. Most people panic because they have no foundation. They don't know what they own. They don't know why they bought it. They don't know what they're waiting for. Buffett's patience comes from being ready before the storm hits. When everyone else is watching the market crash and wondering what to do, he's calm because he already has a plan. Another reason he stays patient is that he separates motion from progress. Most investors think doing something means they're being smart. Buffett thinks the opposite. Acting just to act usually means you're doing something emotional. And emotional decisions cost people money. Buffett would rather sit still with full confidence than move fast with no direction. He once joked that the stock market is like a guy standing next to you shouting prices all day. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll listen to him until he drives you crazy. But if you're patient, you realize you don't have to respond every time he yells. You only respond when he offers you something great. That mindset alone separates him from almost everyone else. Buffett also builds patience by trusting history. He has lived through wars, recessions, inflation spikes, market crashes, bubbles, political chaos, scandals, and everything in between. And every time, the market eventually recovered. Every time, fear seemed permanent until it wasn't. So when panic hits, he stays grounded in what history has proven again and again. He knows the world has more builders than destroyers, more problem solvers than troublemakers. In the long run, progress wins. But the biggest reason Buffett stays patient is because he knows who he is. He doesn't chase trends. He doesn't care about being cool. He doesn't care about being first. He only cares about making sound decisions. He trusts his temperament more than he trusts the noise around him. And once you know yourself that well, it becomes much easier to ignore the crowd. There's a lesson there for all of us. Patience isn't about waiting longer than other people. It's about knowing yourself better than other people do. It's about having a foundation strong enough to stand on when others collapse. It's about believing in your process even when everyone else doubts theirs. And for Buffett, that belief didn't come from money. It came from discipline. The discipline to think for himself. The discipline to learn constantly. The discipline to stay calm. The discipline to act only when it makes sense. That discipline is what turned his patience into a superpower. Think about the moments when the world was in full panic mode. In 2008, banks were collapsing. People were pulling their money out of the market. Fear was everywhere. And while the world froze, Buffett wrote an op-ed telling Americans to stay calm and stay invested. That wasn't optimism for show. That was decades of experience speaking. He had lived through enough storms to know that panic doesn't last forever. But the decisions you make during panic do. In those same moments, while others were dumping stocks at any price, Buffett was quietly buying. Not recklessly. Carefully. Thoughtfully. He looked for companies with strong foundations that were temporarily pushed down by fear. The patience he built over a lifetime helped him make moves most people were too scared to make. There's something powerful about that. Patience isn't just waiting. Patience gives you clarity. And clarity gives you courage. Not the loud kind. The steady, quiet kind that lets you move forward when everyone else is running backward. Buffett learned that panic comes from focusing on the present too much. When you obsess over what's happening right now, every headline becomes a threat. Every drop in the market feels personal. Every rumor feels like a warning. But Buffett keeps his eyes on the long road. He thinks in decades, not days. In that mindset, a crash isn't the end. It's part of the journey. He often says the stock market is a mechanism that transfers money from the impatient to the patient. And he means it literally. Most fortunes are lost because someone acted too fast, sold too early, or bought too late. Most fortunes are built by people who stayed calm long enough for their ideas to grow. Buffett learned patience by surrounding himself with people who value the same mindset. Charlie Munger, his longtime partner, is one of them. Munger taught him that the big money is not in the buying or selling, but in the waiting. Buffett took that to heart. He didn't try to outsmart the market every day. He focused on making a few great decisions in a lifetime. And then he let time do the heavy lifting. But there's a deeper layer to Buffett's patience that often gets overlooked. It's not just about money. It's about trust. Trust in the companies he invests in. Trust in the system he studies. Trust in his own reasoning. That trust doesn't show up overnight. It's built through years of reading, learning, and experiencing. It's built by watching fear come and go like seasons. He once said that temperament, not intelligence, is what makes someone a good investor. Plenty of people are smart. Very few can stay calm when they need to. Very few can watch their investments fall and still believe in their decisions. Very few can resist the urge to follow the crowd. Buffett's superpower is not genius. It's emotional stability. And that stability was learned, trained, and strengthened over a lifetime. Buffett also learned patience by studying history. He didn't just look at charts. He read stories. Stories of businesses that survived world wars, recessions, oil crises, inflation spikes, political turmoil, and technological revolutions. He looked at the full sweep of economic history and realized something important. Panic never wins. Discipline does. Persistence does. Patience does. When you study enough history, you stop treating every downturn like it's the end of the world. You start to see patterns. You see that markets fall, but they also recover. You see that fear rises fast but fades even faster. You see that the strongest companies don't disappear just because their stock price dips. Buffett internalized this. So when panic arrives, he doesn't think, "This is the end." He thinks, I've seen this before. And that simple shift is enough to keep him grounded. Over time, he also built personal routines that reinforced patience. Every day, Buffett spends hours reading annual reports, newspapers, books, letters. He fills his mind with information that helps him stay rational. You can't panic easily when you understand what's happening beneath the surface. Panic grows in silence, in confusion, in uncertainty. Buffett removes that uncertainty with study. But here's the part most people ignore. Buffett deliberately keeps his life simple. Simple routines. Simple principles. Simple habits. Why? Because a simple life reduces emotional noise. And emotional noise leads to emotional decisions. The calmer your life is, the more control you have over your reactions. Buffett created an environment where patience is easier to practice. That's not luck. That's design. And when moments of chaos arrive, he doesn't feel rushed. He doesn't feel pressured. He thinks slowly. He acts slowly. He makes decisions without forcing them. The truth is, patience is uncomfortable for most people. It feels like doing nothing. It feels like wasting time. It feels like falling behind. But Buffett reframed patience. To him, patience isn't doing nothing. It's letting the right things grow. He likes to say you can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. Some things just take time. Wealth is one of them. Confidence is another. Wisdom is another. Buffett learned to respect time the way a farmer respects a growing season. You don't dig up the seeds every day to check if they're growing. You take care of the soil. You water the field. And then you wait with discipline. That is how money grows. That is how character grows. When everyone else panicked, Buffett paused. And in that pause, he found clarity. He found opportunity. And he found the mindset that would build Berkshire Hathaway into a global giant. Because when the world is running fast, sometimes the smartest person in the room is the one who refuses to run. Another big reason Buffett learned to stay patient during panic was that he separated emotion from value. Most people react to price. If the price drops, they panic. If the price rises, they get excited. But Buffett learned early on that price is what you pay, value is what you get. When the price of a great company falls, Buffett doesn't see danger. He sees a discount. Panic makes people blind to value. Patience lets you see it clearly. That mindset shift is everything. He tells investors not to look at the market every day. Why? Because the market is emotional. It moves based on fear, rumors, predictions, and guesses. If you let those emotions guide you, you'll make emotional decisions too. Buffett treats the market like a moody partner. Sometimes it's excited. Sometimes it's depressed. Sometimes it's irrational. But none of that changes what a business is actually worth. He learned that real wealth comes from owning pieces of real businesses, not from chasing fast-moving stock prices. And real businesses don't fluctuate wildly every day. They grow slowly, steadily, over years. So he trained himself to think like a business owner, not a trader. And here's where patience becomes powerful. When you think like an owner, you stop reacting to daily noise. Owners don't panic. Owners think long-term. Buffett's patience during panic also comes from one simple rule he lives by. Never invest in something you don't understand. If you understand the company, you understand its strength. If you understand its strength, you trust it through tough times. Panic loses its grip when understanding takes its place. Buffett is also patient because he knows he doesn't need to catch every opportunity. Most people panic because they feel like they're missing out. They fear falling behind. They rush into things they barely understand. But Buffett calls this the institutional imperative. People doing things just because everyone else is doing them. He ignores all that. He waits for what he calls fat pitches. Not every opportunity. Just the right ones. The rare ones. The ones worth swinging at. This mindset protects him from panic. If you believe you must act all the time, panic becomes your enemy. But if you believe you only need a few great decisions in life, panic becomes irrelevant. You're not afraid to wait. And you're not afraid to ignore the crowd. Buffett also stays patient because he's not addicted to excitement. He doesn't chase adrenaline. He doesn't chase trends. He doesn't chase drama. Many investors love the thrill of risk. Buffett loves the results of discipline. He finds peace in calm decision-making. He finds confidence in slow thinking. He finds strength in consistency. And it's interesting, Buffett's calmness in panic didn't come from avoiding mistakes. It came from making them. Early in his career, he bought businesses he didn't fully understand. He followed market hype. He took shortcuts. And every time, the market punished him. Those painful lessons taught him that patience is not optional. It's essential. Over time, Buffett learned that the real enemy isn't the market. The real enemy is your own fear. If you can learn to master that fear, panic loses its power. And over a lifetime, that emotional discipline compounds faster than money ever could. Buffett also learned to stay patient in times of panic by relying on something most people forget to build: a margin of safety. That principle came from his teacher Benjamin Graham. A margin of safety means leaving room for error, room for uncertainty, room for the unexpected. It means not risking everything just to chase a little extra gain. Because here's the truth. People panic when they're overexposed, when they've risked too much, when one wrong move can wipe them out. Buffett avoids that situation entirely. He never bets the house. He never puts himself in a position where a market drop threatens his future. That safety gives him the confidence to stay calm. When you're not afraid of losing everything, panic can't control you. During crashes, while others worry about survival, Buffett focuses on opportunity. That difference in mindset comes from preparation long before the crisis began. Panic punishes the unprepared. Patience rewards the disciplined. Another reason Buffett stays patient is that he understands cycles. Nothing goes up forever. Nothing goes down forever. The market breathes. It expands. It contracts. It rises. It falls. Buffett doesn't take any of it personally. He doesn't treat downturns as an attack on him. He treats them as part of the natural rhythm of investing. And because he accepts cycles, he doesn't fear them. You can't panic about something you expect. Buffett expects downturns. He expects corrections. He expects temporary losses. So when they come, he doesn't react emotionally. He reacts rationally. He's already prepared for the storm before the clouds appear. Buffett's patience also comes from the power of compounding. He knows that time is the greatest force in building wealth. And panic destroys time. Panic makes people interrupt compounding by selling too soon, buying too fast, or jumping from idea to idea. Buffett avoids that mistake by thinking in decades. He talks about waiting for businesses to produce results over long periods, not short bursts. When you think in decades, a bad week means nothing. A bad month means nothing. Even a bad year doesn't shake you. It's like watching a tree grow. A storm may blow through. The branches may shake. But the tree doesn't stop growing. Buffett knows that wealth works the same way. So he protects his time. He protects his compounding. And that protection makes patience not just an option, but a strategy. Another part of Buffett's patience comes from his ability to remain independent. He doesn't let crowds influence him. He doesn't let headlines, news anchors, or market forecasts push him into emotional decisions. Independence is hard. It requires confidence. It requires conviction. And it requires the courage to stand alone when everyone else is moving in the opposite direction. Buffett cultivated that independence slowly, year by year, decision by decision. And it pays off the most during moments of panic, when the crowd is loudest and fear is contagious. He steps back, ignores the noise, and focuses on the facts. But maybe the strongest reason Buffett stays patient is because he defines success differently. For him, success is not beating the market every quarter. Success is building something that lasts. Success is having the freedom to make decisions without pressure. Success is sleeping well at night because you trust your process. People who chase quick wins panic because their identity depends on speed. Buffett doesn't chase speed. He chases endurance. He chases longevity. He chases stability. And when you chase stability, patience becomes second nature. So, when everyone else panics, Buffett stays still. When everyone else runs, Buffett waits. When everyone else acts out of fear, Buffett acts out of principle. That's how he learned to stay patient. Not by luck, not by chance, but by building a mindset strong enough to withstand the storms that break everyone else. Buffett also learned patience because he doesn't let his ego lead him. Panic often comes from pride. People don't want to admit they were wrong. They don't want to look foolish. They don't want others to think they made a bad decision. So they react emotionally. They sell too fast, buy too fast, or chase trends just to protect their image. Buffett never cared about appearing perfect. He cared about being right in the long run. He didn't try to win arguments. He didn't try to impress anyone. He didn't try to time the market to look smart. When you remove ego, you remove panic. You stop reacting to what people think, and you start reacting to what the situation actually demands. Another thing that shaped Buffett's patience is his belief in rational optimism. He knows the world goes through pain, but he also knows human progress has a long track record of rising higher than anything it suffers. Wars, recessions, crashes, crises, we've been through them all and still moved forward. Buffett invests based on that belief. Not blind hope, but logical optimism. It's easier to stay patient during panic when you genuinely believe the world recovers, industries bounce back, and innovation keeps growing. Fear may dominate the short term, but progress dominates the long term. Buffett trusts that. He often points out that if you had invested in America during its worst moments, the Great Depression, World War II, the oil crisis, 9/11, the 2008 collapse, and stayed patient, you would still come out ahead. That historical truth keeps him grounded when everyone around him is losing perspective. Buffett also learned patience by understanding the difference between noise and information. Most people confuse the two. Noise is dramatic. Noise is emotional. Noise comes from people who need attention, not accuracy. Information is calm. Information is factual. Information helps you think instead of react. During moments of panic, the world is filled with noise. Predictions, warnings, fear. Buffett filters all of it. He ignores anything that doesn't matter. He looks only at what is real, what is measurable, and what he can verify. When you block noise, panic loses its fuel. He also stays patient because he knows decisions made in fear are almost always wrong. Fear shrinks your ability to think long-term. Fear pushes you into short-term reactions. Fear makes minor setbacks feel permanent. Buffett doesn't trust his mind when emotions are high. Instead, he waits. If something doesn't feel clear, he pauses. He takes a step back. He lets the emotion pass. Only then does he decide. That discipline, the discipline to not act, is rare. People think discipline is about effort. Sometimes discipline is about restraint. Buffett mastered the art of waiting not because he's passive, but because he knows the cost of rushing. Another powerful habit that helps Buffett stay patient is his ability to see opportunity in chaos. Most people look at panic and see danger. Buffett looks at panic and sees the chance to buy great companies at great prices. When the world is fearful, he becomes curious. When people flee the market, he enters it. That flip in mindset requires patience. You can't observe opportunity if you're reacting emotionally. You must slow down long enough to see clearly. And this is where Buffett separates himself from almost everyone else. He is willing to be uncomfortable. He is willing to hold onto a decision even when it looks wrong temporarily. He is willing to trust the process even when the world questions him. Panic hates discomfort. Panic wants instant relief. Patience is comfortable with discomfort. Patience can sit through uncertainty and still breathe normally. Buffett built that ability over decades. He trained his mind to stay calm the same way a pilot trains for turbulence. You don't learn patience in the calm. You learn it in the storms. And he has been through enough storms to know that all turbulence passes. So when everyone else panics, Buffett stays grounded. Because he knows something they don't. Panic fades. Patience pays.